Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. This is the morning market review with myself, Russell Shaw. I'm a senior market specialist at FXCM. Today is Friday, it's the 21st of April, and just want to point out my email address, rshaw@fxcm.com. If anybody needs to contact me, that's the email address to use. Just going to bring up our disclaimers and want to just confirm that you guys can see the screen, you can hear me, and you can see me on camera. Hey Raj, good morning to you. All right, excellent. Let's bring up the market commentaries disclaimer. And just the references, market scope and trading view. So the analysis, I think, has been pretty consistent for this week. Let's bring up this chart, which is the daily dollar, taking a look at our zones. And I think this really tells the story. Yes, it's been a positive week for the dollar, but it is in the middle of no man's land, right? It's in the middle of the neutral area between the two blue Bollinger's. We've seen this. We've seen this for the whole week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So on the weekly chart, okay, just to give you an idea, it's been a dollar week, got a slightly blue candle there, but last week we had the long-legged doji or spinning top. That's that candle of uncertainty. We've mentioned that. Take a look at this week's candle. No real range. It's not moving out of zone 2. It's not moving out of the daily zones. And what we've got here is a inside week. Not only have we got an inside week, it's a spinning top as well. So it's just 2 weeks of uncertainty, and that's what we're dealing with as traders when there is this sort of sideways action, as there's been this week. It's very difficult to trade. So this, I think, tells a story of the week. And we did point out yesterday that the stochastic is making its way up. We want to carry on just monitoring this, because what happens if it levels off here again in no man's land, if there is no real traction in either direction? It's a very difficult week for traders this in terms of the currency markets, just because of the sideways movement. It's not only in the dollar. If we bring up gold's been in zone 2 for the entire week as well. So it's just been moving sideways. We've got this element of uncertainty. It's been pervasive for all the days this week. If we go through to our weekly chart on gold, 2000 still the level of resistance. I still like this RSI, but you can see the price reacting off this 2000 level. I think the daily here is more indicative of what's really been going on for the week. Just got this sideways movement. Take a look at where the stochastic is. No man's land. So we've got price, no man's land, stochastic, no man's land. Just that sideways movement. Such a difficult pattern to trade, because there's no volatility, right? Let's take a look at euro, and you'll see similar story with the euro, just moving sideways, and it's now actually starting to edge into that zone 2 as well. We've got the stochastic coming down, and I just wonder if we sort of getting that same feel from the dollar, just that sideways movement. Very frustrating way to be trading. And I think the catalyst here is going to come from yields. We spoke about that yesterday, and I think we've got to look at it again. So let's go ahead and just bring up this 2-year chart. And I've put in an RSI here. The RSI is positive, but it's moving back towards 50. And the question is it going to close below 50? I think there's a big question mark there as well. I wish I could be more certain than that. What we did was we looked at the inflation yesterday, and that inflation is still very worrying. It hasn't reached that point of deceleration in the UK, it hasn't reached that point of deceleration in the EU. It has in the US. The question is it going to hold below the zero line on that rate of change? We want to see that deceleration. And I think that if we can get some progress there, we watched for this pattern on the yield, some sort of wedge pattern, or I think it's a wedge, but either a wedge or a flag, which tends to be continuation. So if it's continuation, one would expect it to break to the downside. Okay, but we don't want to make that sort of prediction. We want to watch the progress in terms of the yield here, and what we can see. Let me get this off. Is perhaps we've got a turning point here where on Wednesday we got the highest high, and then it looks like yesterday we had conditions 2 and 3 where it followed through, and now we want to see if it starts moving down. And if it starts moving down, we want to see if the RSI crosses below 50. Why would that make such a big deal? Well, I think that it could be a catalyst for the market, which is moving sideways. So let's throw in the dollar underneath that. And I think that if we get some sort of movement down here in yield, there may be some sort of pressure to take this to the downside over here. But unfortunately, we're getting just the sideways movement. Very, very frustrating to be a currency trader this week. Let's just take a look at the Nasdaq as well, and the frustrations I think are carrying through to the Nasdaq as well, in that it's moving sideways. Let me bring it up on this chart. Let's go here. I will make this NAS 100. And you can see that the Nasdaq's moving sideways here as well. Okay, so this theme of consolidation, of just moving sideways, we're seeing that in the currency markets, and we're seeing that in gold. We're seeing that even in the Nasdaq. So it's making it quite difficult to trade. No volatility here. If there's no volatility, then of course there's really not much give for us. Let's bring up the NAS 100 here. Okay, so you can see it's in zone 2 as well. So let's just reiterate what's happening this week, because it's not easy for us as traders. We've got US dollar, zone 2. Okay, we've got euro, zone 2. Okay, we go through to gold, zone 2. No give, go through to Nasdaq, zone 2. So you can see there is a general pattern here. What we did look at was the Bollingers, Bollinger's are starting to squeeze, and maybe something gives next week. So we're getting a squeeze here in the Nasdaq. We go through to the US dollar, we're getting a squeeze. Anna pointed this out yesterday, getting a squeeze here in the US dollar. And I think that if we can get some sort of catalyst and get that expansion in the Bollinger Bands, then we take a look, is it going to go into zone 1 or zone 2? Let's just take a look at the DAX. The DAX, really a good looking chart. And you've got the higher trough, higher peak, higher trough, higher peak. You've got this nice looking RSI as well. Go through to the zones. Okay, so we are hanging on to zone 1 here, but you can see starting to slip maybe a little bit into zone 2. Let's just go through to the hourly chart here. All right. Potentially 1, 2, 2, 3. I'll take a look at the S1, see if we get some sort of support off of the S1. But right now, going through to the daily chart, very little movement on the range, very thin. So not much happening here on the DAX either. So again, perhaps a little bit of uncertainty coming in, and just on the border of zone 1 and zone 2. And if it slips into zone 2, we go into that no man's land once again. What we want to see here is either a trigger 1, and if we get a trigger 1, we want to perhaps see a movement to the upper quintile. So this has been, to me, a very frustrating week, especially because we've seen also results coming out. The results been a little bit mixed, and perhaps that's what's causing some of this uncertainty. But very, very difficult to trade in an environment where we just drifting along in that zone 2 area. If there's any questions, please go ahead and type those in. But I think that we have to wait for some sort of catalyst, some sort of movement that shifts that US 2-year yield, shifts that dollar. Once we get that shift in the 2-year yield, once we get that shift in the US dollar, hopefully some sort of ripple effect that gives us more volatility to play with. Let's just take a look at the hourly chart and the Euro US dollar just before we. Okay, so Euro coming down. Take a look at the US dollar. US dollar pushing up. Okay, so we're just going to see if there's if this has any legs. If it moves into zone 1 here and we have that expansion, we'll see what's happening on the 2-year yield. At this stage, I think we need to see a little bit more progress, a little bit more evolution in terms of the price action before we can come up with some sort of hypothesis. At the moment, because we're drifting in that zone 2, we're in no man's land. Fortunately, it makes it very, very difficult to come out with some sort of trend hypothesis. That's where we'll leave it for this morning. I don't see any other questions coming in. So I want to wish you guys a good day ahead, a good weekend ahead, and we'll catch up on Monday morning. Thanks very much.